Upgrades.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS movie review. And this movie review here is a very interesting one because this is a film that has been anticipated since the original came out 5 years ago. And this one is Bird Box Barcelona. Say that 3 times fast and try to keep that together. Bird Box Barcelona. And here's the quick synopsis. After a mysterious force decimates the world's population, Sebastián must navigate his own survival journey through the destitutes of the streets of Barcelona. And this is directed by Àlex and David Pastor. It stars Mario Casas as Sebastián and Georgina Campbell as Claire. And I'll start off by saying this. Everyone knows the original Bird Box was a surprise hit on Netflix starring Sandra Bullock that became this huge film that no one expected, and it came out of nowhere. So the anticipation was extremely high for a sequel based off of this film. And instead of making a direct sequel of this film, they decided that they would just take this premise, put it in a different part of the world as a way to expand the universe of Bird Box. The key impressions for me for this film. From the beginning of the film, it feels like it's not even really connected to the first film. The characters feel completely different. The characters move completely different. Even as we're introduced to Sebastián and his character with his own personal struggle with these monsters, these demons, whatever they are supposed to be, as we see his initial struggle with them, as we see his relationships building off of what happens to him in this film because of these things when they take over his country, we get to see a different perspective than we did with Sandra Bullock's character in the first one. And not only just because it's a male perspective of it, but more so because his view of the world is so different than hers was. And when we get that view of the world and we get to see everything build with Sebastián going into extremely surprising places that they take you with this character, the more and more they detach Sebastián from what the premise that we had with Sandra Bullock in the first one, the more this film feels like it's not even remotely close to being connected to the first one. The first one had a lot of thrills in it. Even though it's not the best film, it had a lot of thrilling moments in it that was reminiscent of Quiet Place. That's the movie that got compared the most to the original Bird Box. Here, on the other hand, this movie is almost thrill-free. There's little to no thrills in this film. Even when we're introduced to what these beings can do and what they can do to people, it's not in a thrilling aspect. It feels a lot more akin to the way we saw everything flow in Book of Eli, if you remember that movie with Denzel Washington. It feels way closer to that than the original Bird Box. And that is what's off-putting about this film, is that they've taken away all the thrilling aspects of this film. Even though, again, the creatures still exist, even though the thing where you can't see them, all of this still exists. We have very interesting characters, whether it be Sebastián, whether it be Claire, played by Georgina, whether it be the supporting cast here. All of them are interesting characters, but the issue is here that this feels so much like Book of Eli, I Am Legend type of survivalistic film, more than the thrilling aspects that we got from the first one with Sandra Bullock. So you kind of end up stuck into this Bird Box world, but not experience any of what made you love the first Bird Box. And again, as I said before, like, the first Bird Box is not a great film, but what it is so thrilling, and it's a captivating performance by Sandra Bullock. Here, this film is clearly missing the charisma of Sandra Bullock's character, or even Travion Rhodes' character in the first one. A lot of that is missing here, and what we get as a replacement just doesn't feel the same, and it's because it doesn't feel the same because it's not the same story of it. This is a completely different take on what the world would look like in a different part of the world because of these creatures that come to Earth and what they do to people. So we get a completely different spin on the powers of the creatures. We get a completely different spin on how they affect people. It's so many different spins that it takes you away from the original aspects that make you love the first film. Now, that's not to say this is a bad made film. This is a beautifully made film, though. It looks amazing. It actually looks better than the first one. I want to say cinematography is better than the first one. The score is better than the first one. Like it has aspects of this film that are much better, or I should say, improved from the first film. But the things that aren't are the thrilling aspects that made the first film must-watch TV. A great performance by Sandra Bullock that captivated people. All of that is missing in this film. And when you take those elements out of it, you're kind of left with a film that completely feels like it's, one, not in the same universe, two, it feels like a made-for-television film. It feels just so detached from the first Bird Box. And about 10 minutes into it, and when you're noticing where this plot is going to start to go to, and as you see the characters evolve and the story evolve into what we get taking place in this world of Bird Box, you're kind of left wondering, should I even finish this movie? Like, it's so detached from everything you want. So if you are accustomed to the original Bird Box, and which is in a sense a horror film, but in a way a survivalistic horror film, here it feels more akin to a drama, way more akin to a drama than a thriller. There's, again, no thrilling moments in this film. There's solid performances, especially by Georgina, who plays Claire. Her performance is really good in this film, but it's never enough to carry us over a very weak story. Some conflating things that they do with these creatures in this film that wasn't even fully hinted towards in the first film, that kind of completely throws you off and makes you wonder, did you miss something from the original Bird Box to really get you intrigued with this one? I think that is the thing that sticks out the most. I watched the first Bird Box before watching this one because I wanted to make sure I was not missing anything. And even after this film, I feel like I need to go back again and watch the first Bird Box to see if I'm missing something, because it just feels so separated from it. It almost feels like a completely separate movie, and they just stamped the name Bird Box onto this movie. It was a movie on Netflix with Stanley Tucci, the same thing in a survivalistic type of film that this film feels way more akin to than Bird Box. And it puzzles me, some of the decisions that were made with the story here and the progression of the story here, and making characters likable for you to even care what happens to them. Like it drops off some of the principles that make these type of horror films work or thrillers work. And instead, again, when you just left with none of those aspects of the film and something that feels just akin to being a straight drama, you're kind of stuck wondering why. And that's where it really is. What was the overall point of Bird Box Barcelona? Was it just to expand the world? Because if that was the case, I think we understand that these things move differently in different parts of the world, which would make absolutely no sense for something that shouldn't be the case. But it's something that you're left with as an audience, and you're left with asking questions, and you're left missing Sandra Bullock's character through this entire film. It makes you fully appreciate that films with a weaker premise, films with a well-trotted story, can really benefit from an actor that can really carry a film. This film is more an ensemble piece than the first Bird Box was, and because of that, it's no centralized person that you're focused on carrying this film. And the film struggles mightily because you don't have that character in it. So, Bird Box Barcelona, brought to you by Netflix. This comes out Friday, July 14th. Out of a possible 10, I'm going to give Bird Box Barcelona 5.5 out of 10. While it does have its glaring flaws in it, it's still just enough of the dramatic aspects at times of it to keep you intrigued, to keep you watching at times. It's a great storyline that clearly we can't talk about because it would spoil the things for you. But it's a great storyline about the differences that these creatures are doing in this film from the first film that I think can really keep people intrigued. Until it leans way too much to the Book of Eli aspects of what it means to survive in a world that's destitute. I didn't like any aspects of that, but I did like expanding on what these things can do and how they affect people. I think that is a good thing to do, because if we're going to get another Barcelona or another Bird Box in another part of the world, now that we have this film and we understand what these things can do, I think you can have a lot more fun just taking it to different parts of the world and showing the impact of these things when they took over. And then possibly coming back around to give like just a closing group type film of everything that happens, because that's what you got to hope for by the end of this film. You really are hoping that maybe we're expanding this universe into something different. Hopefully it doesn't go down, and it does feel like it could go down the Cloverfield universe route, but you're hoping it doesn't, and you're hoping it just expands upon this universe, and maybe we get back to another Bird Box being made with an actor who can truly carry it and not an ensemble piece, because this is not the setting for that to happen. But hopefully they correct that for any possible sequels. Not even that this film sets up a sequel, but at this point, the first one didn't set up a sequel, so why not give us a sequel to it? So check it out when it drops Friday. Let us know what you think. This has been another JVS movie review. Peace, people.